Fantasy Island is an amusement park located in Grand Island, New York, just outside of Niagara Falls, and I had the opportunity to visit it this past summer. It's home to 3 roller coasters, including Silver Comet, a CCI wind roller coaster, which was our main reason for wanting to visit this place, but they also have a Zamperla spinning wild mouse and a wacky worm. And that is all combined with a bunch of family attractions, including a kids area, carnival rides, you name it. So this is going to be my full in-depth review. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this place should you decide you want to go out and visit. Now, first impressions, I want to say this park was bigger than what I was expecting. The park is kind of separated into 2 parts. You have the front half, which is very green, lots of trees and plants, and then you have the second half, which is just wide open spaces. That's where you have a lot of your rides just kind of plop down onto concrete. It's 2 completely different vibes, which is kind of weird. Like, if you look at shots of this from the front of the park versus the back of the park, it doesn't even look like the same place. So that was one of the first things I thought of when I saw that. I was like, wow, that's a little strange. But in general, I will say this place surprised me. It has a lot of quirky little areas and just things in general that I was not expecting. One of the areas I want to talk about specifically is the children's area. I swear it is something straight out of a European theme park. Like, it is very reminiscent of something you'd see at Efteling. And funny enough, the kids area is called Fairy Tale Forest. So it fits right in, but it's very much like a smaller version of that because you have all these cool facades, all these different buildings that remind you of like obscure fairy tales. There's statues, rides themed to the different stories. It's just a very nice area. I didn't know that area even existed before I went in. So when I was walking around, I was like, wow, this area is really nice. So yeah, consider me impressed. Great children's area, Fantasy Island. Now I've talked about the different dynamics with the front half of the park and the back part of the park. I would say in terms of atmosphere, it's definitely a lot nicer towards the front, but you might be spending more time towards the back since that's where most of the rides are. One area that is almost like a transition between the front and the back is they have a little western town. Very cute, just kind of a straight out western scene where you have buildings on either side with different shops. And we actually got lunch within the western town, which was this barbecue place. And that was actually really good. They recently revamped their food menu, and it was great. We got wings, pulled pork sandwiches, you name it, all sorts of barbecue. It was really good. I highly recommend eating there. Specifically talking about the back of the park, I mentioned how it's just kind of a lot of rides plopped down on concrete. Several of the attractions feel like something that you would see at a carnival, like a temporary ride. They even have this one pendulum style attraction I've only ever seen at carnivals, but here it's a permanent addition, so I was surprised by that. I hadn't seen one of those things in years. But they also have a star flyer. I mentioned that spinning wild mouse. Those things can get pretty crazy during the second half of the ride. And of course, Silver Comet, very solid wind roller coaster. One of my favorite things about it is that when you're actually up at the top, you can look out and see downtown Niagara Falls. So that just shows you how close this park is to Niagara Falls. Of course, it is on the American side, but it's not even that far from, say, a place like Marineland. You could easily do both parks in one day if you really want to. Something to note, Fantasy Island does have a water park. I did not visit it. However, I mentioned how I thought that this park was bigger than what I was originally expecting. That's completely excluding the water park. I can imagine if you did the water park and the dry park, you could actually spend quite a bit of time here. If there is a downside to Fantasy Island, my biggest complaint was the restrooms. They were very outdated, dare I say disgusting. They were small, cramped, looked like they hadn't received any tender loving care. It was not up to standards of what you would expect with a theme park restroom. Like, you think some theme park restrooms are bad, these are probably the worst ones I've seen, or one of the worst. That was my biggest complaint. Other than that though, again, I'll say this park did surprise me. We ended up spending more time here than I was originally expecting. And in general, I'll say that this park just has great overall management. We are very well taken care of here. You can just tell that the staff like working here. They enjoy their jobs. They care about this place. And that's really good because that tells you that they want it to get better. They're interested in making the park look the best it possibly can. So I really respect that. But I guess for final thoughts, is it worth your time to come visit Fantasy Island? And I think as far as amusement parks go, it's a little tricky because you have some competition within the area. Not too far away is Six Flags Darien Lake. I mentioned Marineland. A little bit further across the border is Canada's Wonderland. And so Fantasy Island is one of those smaller locations that you might be passing up to go to one of these bigger parks. So I think where Fantasy Island really fits in is if you are staying local to Niagara Falls, if you want something that's maybe a bit cheaper than one of those other parks, and maybe you're not looking necessarily for a full day commitment. If you aren't doing the water park, you don't need more than a few hours here. So I think it really just depends on your circumstances. I'm glad I had the chance to visit Fantasy Island. That being said, I probably won't be back for a while unless they got something big and brand new, but I'm definitely glad I visited. So that's gonna do it for my thoughts on Fantasy Island in Grand Island, New York. Let me know down in the comments below if you've been here, if you agree with what I've said. If you think I missed anything, be sure to post it down below, and stay tuned for more here at Coaster Studios. I'll see you guys next time.